Hey guys, today on Storytime Sunday, Tuesday edition. The story is called With a Mighty Voice. Um, this story actually starts when uh, Victoria and her husband, Pastor Theo Williams, um, were expecting their first baby. And um, this pregnancy was long awaited, long expected, because she was they had been trying for years, um, ever since a year after they got married, and it took them 15 years to actually get pregnant. So now she was 39, and he was no, she was about third. Um, She was about 38 and he was 42. 42. So they were expecting and they were so excited. And this pregnancy was very strange because it's almost like the baby was speaking when um, when um, it's almost like the baby was speaking before she could even talk. So what would happen the first instance of the baby speaking? The um, Her mom was about 7 months pregnant with her, and Theo was um, reading a story in the Bible where um, ab- about after years after David killed Goliath, and he was he actually had one of his men called Abishai step in, and when he was reading the story loud to the baby, they didn't know what sex of the baby it was yet because they chose not to know. But when he was reading the story to his daughter, um, in her mommy's tummy, and he mentioned the name Abishai, the baby kicked. And he mentioned Abishai again, the baby kicked. Um, and so they took that as a sign from God that that baby's name would be Abishai. So when Abishai was born, she was a girl, and from the time she was born, she had a special prophetic anointing. Um, like one time when she was about 7, this was the first time they saw it. Um, Her neighbor um, had um, lost her husband, and this neighbor was about 40 or 45. And that morning, the neighbor was so devastated about losing her husband that she she thought of killing herself. And Abishai was walking down the street with her mom, and um, Abishai stopped um, and let go of her mother's hand and said, "I need to talk to Mrs. I need to go. I need to talk to Mrs. Murphy." And her mother said, okay, let's go over and see her. So Mrs. Murphy was out watering her garden, and little Abishai, at the age of 7, came up to her and said, can I give you a hug? You look sad. And Abishai gave her a hug, and the Lord showed when Abishai gave her a hug, her neighbor hug, the Lord showed her what Mrs. Murphy was going to do. Like, she didn't understand it, but she saw the pill bottle, she saw the neighbor contemplating it and contemplating just killing herself. Now, at 7, she didn't really know the implications, but she knew her neighbor was hurting. And she said to her, she whispered in her ear while they were hugging, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Don't worry. He's with Jesus. It's going to be all right. He didn't want to leave you. But the Lord said he had to go. But she said to him as a little girl, she said to the lady, he had to go, but you don't have to go. That's what she said to the woman. She said, he had to go, but you don't have to go. And the neighbor just broke down crying, because that morning she had tried to take her own life. And she's like, little Abishai's like, Jesus, help Mrs. Murphy feel better. She misses Mr. Murphy so much. Help, give her a hug and help her feel better. And the woman was stunned and crying and all that. And there was this peace that came over the neighbor, and she said to Abishai, you know you're very special. She said, thank you. And then she walked, and then her mother walked up to the lady and said, are you all right, Mrs. Murphy? I hope she didn't bother you. She says, that child has a gift. Treasure her, take care of her. And this was the first time, and as Abishai grew up, her prophetic gift became more pronounced. Like, she would stop people on the street and just hold their hand, and God would give her a picture of what was going on in their lives. And as she got older, the pictures became more clear and more clear. And she just began to minister and speak the word of God to even strangers. And along with her prophetic gift, when she was in the womb, her mother would listen to Shirley Caesar, the gospel artist, and she just began to listen to Shirley Caesar. And when she was born, she developed this talent for music at 4. She could sing like better than most 40-year-olds. She was so talented, so they put her in choir and put her in everything. She was so talented, and she loved Jesus, and uh, sh- she had a real prophetic gift, and she loved Jesus, and she had a really gift. She had a real gift for song and songwriting. The same year that her first prophetic gift came to light, her songwriting gift came to light. Um, Her music teacher gave them an assignment to write a song, and her song was so far past what it should have been for her age. The music teacher called her mother and said, um, "This child has a gift for music." And along with her gift for music and her prophetic gift, she was a remarkable child. And she grew up and up and up, and both her gifts, both her musical gift and her prophetic gift, began to grow. And there was one day when she was about 16, when she was about, let's say, 14, where she began to sing uh, How Great Thou Art. It was a Sunday morning, and the church was packed, and everyone was packed. And as she began to sing, um, as she got to the chorus, as she sang, "This is my song, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art, then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And as she began to sing, um, as she finished singing, the the door opened and the gunman just came into the church and said, um, and and put a gun to her father's head and said, "If you say one word, I'll kill your dad and your mom and everyone in this church." So she didn't speak. Despite that, he made everybody think that the gunman made everybody think that he wasn't going to kill everyone. So he said, "Give me all your money." So he took everybody's money. He got the treasurer to get the money from the church, and despite saying that he wasn't going to kill anyone, um, when he was about to leave, he turned and opened fire on everyone. So, it, her parents and some of the congregate, um, her parents were killed, and her brother and sister was killed. Because what I forgot to mention is they had two children after that, so they were killed, and it was so devastating that it was all over the news and everything. And then she escaped. Um, she she ran. She took off and she ran when he was killing people. She didn't want to get killed, so she snuck out. Um, she made an excuse. I have to go to the bathroom, and hid in the bathroom for 2 days, and no, hid in the bathroom for 2 hours, not 2 days, and snuck out the back door, um, and caught a bus with the money her dad had given her. Caught a bus, ran to um, another church and banged on the door, and the the pastor's wife answered the door because it was so um, loud. The noise was so loud that they were they had to answer the door. So the pastor's wife answered the door, and she saw this teenager with blood all over her dress, and just totally traumatized by what had happened. And so and so so the pastor, um that um pastor and Lady Noble took her in, and they found out that her parents were killed, and that she had nowhere to go. So because she was 17, they agreed to keep her until she was um, 18 or 19, or able to um, be on her own. So, as you can imagine, the first few nights were awful, full of nightmares and everything, flashbacks, major PTSD. And uh, when the pastor's wife tried to speak to her, she opened her mouth and nothing came out. Nothing came out. So she couldn't talk. She was so traumatized that she couldn't talk. And when she tried to sing, she couldn't sing either. So what they had to do, uh, she had to write down everything she wanted to say. So she carried a pen and a paper. And one of the bad things too is the good pastor looked like the gunman who killed her family. So every time he would come near, she would just cower, and he could not get near her. And it was really awful. And she was it, she went to therapy with this um, Christian therapist who specialized in trauma. She was a nice lady in her late 40s, early 50s, that would help her get through the trauma. But all the therapy and everything just wouldn't do anything. And plus, but in all that. She stopped singing, she stopped speaking, but the Lord developed in her a gift for prayer. She didn't stop praying in her head. So the nobles didn't know that she was doing this, but every day she couldn't, she didn't talk, couldn't sing. Every time she opened her mouth, nothing would come out. She would want to, but it wouldn't work. She couldn't sing, she couldn't speak, but in her head, she would pray the most beautiful prayers. So every day, she would pray a prayer for the family, and every day she would do individual prayers for the pastor, for his wife, and for their two children. And so the first Christmas that she lived with them, um, uh, the first Christmas that she lived with them, um, she gave them, instead of shopping Christmas presents, she gave them each her prayer books for them. She made prayer books with prayers for them. And so she made each of the kids a prayer book. She made the pastor and his wife a prayer book. And she even made um, the pastor and his wife a prayer book together for their marriage. And the prayers in that prayer book were so insightful. They were so right on the money. So 365 prayers a year per person, and plus one set of prayer for their marriage. So she was praying for them nonstop. So this kind of not being able to talk or not being able to sing or do her prophetic thing was extremely good in a way, because it opened up her prayer gift, because she started to pray in her head for the family that had taken her in. And the Pastor Noble was a very kind of nice guy, but he would always think, why are people not responding to me well, or whatever? And he would say, why are they so mad? Why are they looking so mad? And in her prayer book, she she prayed. She put a little note beside her prayer. Uh, she she put a she prayed, open his eyes that he may see that it's not about him. It's actually the reason why they're not responding to his sermon is because they're probably going through things that he doesn't know about. So they're probably thinking about what they're going through, not about his sermon. Um, and then she put suggestion, uh, instead of thinking about why are they so angry and making it about you. Why don't you pray for green shirt in the front row, or black pants and purple shoes in the second row? pray for them, and maybe the Lord will reveal to you what's going on, or you'll know how to pray for them, and they'll get healing for their situation. And one time, he was preaching, and he took her suggestion instead of taking it on himself, saying, "Why aren't they receiving what I'm preaching?" There was somebody in the front row who was looking very irate and upset, and he asked, and the person was wearing a green plaid shirt, and he asked, I pray for the person in the green plaid shirt, and the Lord revealed to him that that person, his wife, after 25 years, said, "I don't love you anymore," and ran off with a 20-year-old man, and his wife was 52. So he was angry because of that. So as the Lord began to reveal this to Pastor Noble, Pastor Noble began to pray for this person that either the marriage will be restored, or that uh, that the Lord will get glory from the marriage in a wonderful way. And the next week at church, Pastor Noble got a knock on his door, and it turned out to be um, the gentleman that he prayed for. And the gentleman shared with him what happened with his wife. And the gentleman said, "Last week when you were preaching, I don't know what happened, but I felt something. I felt that you were praying for me and thinking of me, and all week I couldn't get that out of my mind, and I was so angry and devastated and hurt by what my wife had done before I couldn't even think straight. But the thought that you were praying for me just began to heal something in me. And God used your prayer to heal something in me." So, and he said, "Thank you, Pastor Noble." And he shook his hand and left the office. And the pastor was like, "Whoa, it really works." So, and then um, one day, the next Sunday, a few weeks from then, um, they were the Nobles were coming out of the church, and by this time she still wasn't talking or singing, just praying in her head. And but she saw this couple, um, and God spoke to her for the first time in a little while and said, "Go over to that couple." And then she said, "Could you give me a second?" And then she went over to that couple, and she said, um, they said they were they were named the Browns, and she said to them. This may sound a little weird, but can I give you a hug? Keep in mind, this person hadn't talked in so long. She she gave them a hug and saw that their daughter had had an abortion, and they didn't know about it. And she kept holding on to their hand and whispered, "Talk to your daughter." And she and he and she said, uh, "Talk to your daughter, and when you talk to her, put your arm around her and reassure her that there's nothing that she can do to make you stop loving her. And make sure you put your arm around her and make sure you let her know that she is loved." And they said, "How strange." And they said, "How strange." She walked away. And then she, she gave the card for her uh, trauma doctor, trauma therapist to Mrs. Murphy, and saying that if you need this, use it. She's a wonderful therapist, and she's really helped me. And the woman said, "Okay." He's, and Abishai says, "I'll be praying for you." And she lets go, and then goes back to her family. And she writes down on a paper, "Don't ask." She writes down on her little pad to show her family, and she writes, "Don't ask." And her family's like, "Okay, we won't ask." Um, and then the something about that girl's comments, that 17-year-old girl's comments, kept on nagging at Mrs. Mrs. Brown. And then when she got home, she said to her husband, "I think we should talk to Macy, like that girl said, like that th- that that young lady said. I think something may be wrong with Macy." And her husband said, "No, that's just a nice lady." And she said, "I think something's wrong. I don't know what it is. She seems like she seems like and she seems like the same person, but maybe we should." And then God moves upon his heart that night, because he can't let what Abishai said go. That there's something wrong with their daughter. She seems fine, but there's something wrong with her, and he doesn't know what. But now that he thinks of it, there's something a bit different about her. And so the next day he agrees with his wife that he should be um that they should talk to their daughter. So they talk to their daughter, and at first she denies it, and um and then she tries to deny it, and her mother, like Abishai said, "There's nothing you can tell us to make us love you less. Are you sure that everything's fine?" And the girl breaks down and cries and says, tells her parents about the abortion, that she got pregnant, and she was scared, and she thought that it would be the easiest way. She knew it was wrong, but she, couldn't see a way out. She didn't want to tell her parents, her Christian parents, that she got pregnant. And so she thought the abortion would take care of it. But all it's done is make her crazy and uh, give her nightmares. So, and she cries in her parents' arms, and she's like, Mom, what are we going to do? What am I going to do? And Mrs. Brown takes out the card for the trauma therapist, and they make an appointment to get family counseling and therapy. And the upcoming and the following week in church, um, Mrs. Brown finds Abishai and tells her, "Thank you so much. Our daughter told us what happened." She's like, "How did you know?" It's like, she's like, "Well, I just did." And she whispered it. Because openly she's not talking or singing. But when it comes to prophesying, she's whispering to the person, to the people. So God is slowly opening her up. But her breakthrough comes when the worship team, when one Sunday the church is empty, everybody's gone home, the church is empty. And Abishai begins to goes into the church as an empty church and starts to sing. Like she walks down the pews and remembers what happened to her family. And as she remembers, she begins to sing. She begins to say, "You will not have power over me anymore. You will not have power. I will sing again." And she begins to sing with her shaky voice that is almost unused except for the couple of prophetic things and some other little stuff. But really, uh, it's not been used for almost a year. She begins to sing, "Oh Lord, my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the world thy hands have made. I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder." And as she sings, it gets louder. "Thy path throughout the universe displayed." And when she gets to the chorus, it's so loud and beautiful. And she sings, "Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art." And as she begins to sing, she begins to cry. And tears just end up streaming down her face. Down her face. How great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And she just begins to sing with a mighty voice and cry too. And just, she lays down at the altar, and unbeknownst to her, her father, not her father, her, the pastor and his wife and their children gather around her, and she begins to cry. And there's a sense of freedom and a sense of peace because she got her voice back. It came back slowly. First, her prophetic voice came back, and now her singing voice came back. And then she says, "Thank you." And then they smile, and it's like, you've talked. So it came back slowly, and she still went to therapy, but like in that, it just all came back, and the Lord healed her with the therapist's good counsel and the noble's love. The Lord healed her from her trauma, and she was able to lift up Jesus with a mighty voice. What the devil tried to take from her, the Lord brought back through through his presence, his love, therapy, and a loving family. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I definitely enjoyed telling it. Thanks. Take care, you guys. See you for the next Storytime Sunday. The Lord wants to bring back something in you today. What does He want to bring back from you today? He doesn't want you withholding anything. Something is rising up in you, something that has been dead for a long time. And just like Abishai in the story, He's bringing it back gradually. Don't fight it. Let Him bring that business back. Let Him bring that child back to Him. Let Him bring whatever He wants to bring back. Let Him do it. And don't worry about what you lost. Praise Him for what He's bringing back. And praise Him for the lessons that you've learned over what you've lost. Because what you've lost always comes with lessons. See the lessons in what you lost. Use the lessons as tools to learn. Lessons are tools to learn, so use it as such. Thank you guys.